just gonna have it run. Get some people in here.
We're live.
We are live. So now I just gotta wait for the masses to join in.
Yeah.
At least we're getting it now. You know, that's all that matters. Good garbage is gene fighting. Yeah, that's good garbage.
Say, is there a power button?
Windows.
It's on the center.
Yes.
There we go.
We are never there.
That's all him.
Yeah, I'll figure it out.
Don't you agree that it needs to be like a tequila Gundam? I know what you're getting.
Yeah, it is a tequila Gundam.
I think no, I call it like a resin kit.
No,
Oh, resin kit. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, for those joining in right now, we're just kind of setting up.
Yeah.
I'll bring it up on my phone. We can watch the chat.
Yes.
I want to do this. I'll do screen raise. Is this on? Oh, it's on. Good.
We'll let you know.
I'm just gonna duplicate it.
Go. 8 people watching.
Yeah. Oh, you got the chat.
I don't know.
Cool, cool. All right, you do the chat, because
All right.
yeah, we got people. We got people.
Yeah. We have a captive audience now.
Yeah.
Fair enough, man.
The group's like eating your face.
I know. It's all
I
right.
can scooch him over.
Yeah, just move him like.
Whoa, there went your monkey.
Yeah, he's tough. I want to move this to the side a little bit.
All right.
Yeah, move on a little more.
People are seeing it.
Heresy.
People need to see him. He's the prettiest boy.
Yeah, I could put him over here.
Sorry.
Kind of in between. Like in that.
Or I could put him like, I'll put it right here.
Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
There's some cords out on.
I figured that someone was not.
All right. Yeah, we got a couple people in here now. I'm gonna open it up. I'm gonna open it up on YouTube. Hey guys, we're just getting started.
Yep.
I'll bring the chat up on here. All right. Oh. Okay. All right. So I guess we can get started. So welcome. This is Gunpla with Ed. I'm Ed. This is Henry. I'm Double Gunner Reviews V2, and
Vegeta8259.
yeah,
Pretty much everywhere.
yeah, and we're here to talk about Gunpla today.
Yeah.
So, out of all you guys, I'm assuming most of you know what Gundam is. Yes. All right. Okay. All have a general understanding. Good. All right. We're on page 1. Okay. So how many of you guys build? Like, just show of hands. All you guys build? Anyone? Are you guys just here for the Gundam stuff? Okay. So we're just like a general question, since we have a small crowd here, and actually online too, because we're live streaming this right now.
Yeah.
So we've got a live chat. What do you guys do building wise? Like, do you guys just snap fit? Do you paint? All right, it's fair as long as you enjoy it. So yeah, so just straight building. Are you guys interested at all in learning new techniques and stuff?
Yeah.
All right, well, it's in the right place. So I guess we'll start off, talk a little about ourselves. So I've been building since I was a wee lad. I got into MSAs when I was young, and I accidentally bought a model kit and was really pissed off because I thought it was a figure. And at the time I thought, why would I want to do this? Why would I want to put so much time and effort into that? And I really wish I could just like see what I became, because I fell into a rabbit hole. So I remember getting this model, and I opened it, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna build that. Why? I don't want to build that. And 2 minutes passed, and I didn't have a ride, and I had to wait somewhere for 20 minutes. I was like, fine, I guess I'll build it. So I ended up building it. Broke the front skirts, broke the V-fin, but it was mine. It was something that I made, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever, because figures are cool, but they're really, to me, a lot of them are just like the same thing. So the cool thing about buying and building a Gunpla was that I made it with my own hands. I thought that was the coolest thing. And going into this hobby, as an adult, I sort of realized that that pretty much is the essence of Gunpla, because no two kits are alike. Even if you snap build, if you straight build, no two kits are the same. And it's a very unique hobby, and it's very much an art form. I very much believe that. So if I get a little artsy on you, don't worry. But
He's the touchy-feely one.
yeah. So as I got into the Gundam community more, I met this awesome dude who, even though I had probably the dumbest questions any Gunpla builder in the world could ask, you never turned me away, and you still don't. People ask some pretty out there questions, and that's fine, because everybody does that. But Henry, he never stopped responding to me, and he always answered like any question. And even down the line, I was trying to figure out how to airbrush. I'm like, so you put paint in the thing? And you're like, yes, you put paint in the thing. So that's Henry was like one of my oldest Gunpla friends. So I'm really glad that he's here today. And you can talk a little bit about yourself, because you have a very rich history with Gunpla. You've done a lot. So
I started in Gunpla in 2000, about the time Gundam started airing here in the U.S. on Toonami and stuff. And I remember they started airing the commercials, and I immediately saw them and was like, I want to build one of those, because like I had always been into action figures and stuff, but I'd never really been into model kits at all, and it was just really exciting to think about.
Just reading the chat.
To think about being able to not just have something you take out of the box and put on a shelf or play around with that's the exact same thing as everyone else's, but having something you can actually customize and make it your own and be completely unique from everyone else's. And I notice a lot of people in the community that I talk to are scared to start painting or customizing. But like when I bought my very first kit, I was so into the painting idea of it that I had bought my paints before the kit had even arrived in the mail. And that was just something that really, really appealed to me. So it kind of just took off like a rocket from there, and I've been building for about 17 years. Around 2008, I think, I started my YouTube channel, and I'd seen a couple other people doing Gunpla on YouTube, and I thought, oh, that's kind of cool. And so I just started putting kits in front of the camera and talking about them and uploading it, and people sort of got into it. So I kept doing that more and more and got more of a following, and branched out into other social medias like Twitter and Facebook. And since then, the whole Gunpla social media community has just exploded. Started on YouTube, it was just like a handful of people.
It was like you Prime 92, Too Old for Toys.
It was very few people, but it's gotten so big in the past few years that there's this enormous community on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, even places like Reddit and stuff like that. There's
Reddit has a huge community,
Gunpla community. So it's just
everywhere.
Much, much bigger than it was just not even 10 years ago. So
it's really amazing, because I do social media marketing for a living, so I'm very much into it, and it's really interesting seeing the real expand of Gunpla in general in America and the popularity of it, especially with Bluefin bringing things over, and the real boom it's had, especially with Build Fighters and everything coming out. And Build Fighters, love it or hate it, it's gotten a lot of people in the Gundam, like the franchise as a whole. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, Gunpla in general it's been such a huge part of my life, because it really got ingrained in me at an early age when I was like 14. So it's just trying to find things other to do than play soccer and RuneScape all the time. So really started to get into the hobby. Had no idea what I was doing. I have some of the most like horrifying stories about trying to use certain things, because that's another thing I want to talk about. Using like different tools and like things that are unorthodox is really interesting, because I used wood putty at one point to try to fill seam lines, and wood putty doesn't cure with plastic. It stays wood putty. I did that. I used wax to like weight down feet. I used to use super glue to like fix all my seam lines and everything. And then eventually Henry ended up just gifting me an airbrush and all this stuff. And he's like, it's time for you to not do that anymore. So he gave me pretty much every tool that I started out with, because I have like a hobby knife and some cutters and my hand paints, and you're like, here, try this. So he gave me an airbrush and he gave me all these like tools. And that's what really got me started into building. And just FYI, what you're seeing on the screen was my latest project. It was called Steam Siege. And I wanted to bring it here because I love trains. I was really happy that I got put up in Chattanooga, because this place is train central. But basically, it was I combined Gunpla with model trains, and I made 2 steam engine mechs that are fighting a big diesel engine guy. And you'll see more of that as it goes on, but I just figured I'd put something on the TV instead of having it be my desktop. So if you have any questions about that, feel free. It's something pretty to look at other than us. Anyway, I'm really not big into like the technical stuff. Again, I'm more into the I do more basic stuff. Like, as you can see, a lot of the kits here, the smaller ones are all mine, except for the big orange dude. That one's mine. Henry does more of the large scale stuff, lots and lots of scratch building, and lots of mods that I can't even begin to wrap my head around. So, my big thing again is I really love simplicity with Gunpla. I think it's really you can make anything look good as long as you own it in your own style, and you can kind of create it any way that you want. Again, Gunpla being such a diverse thing. So a lot of my kits they're not very modded. I don't really go crazy with the scratch building, except for this thing that I'm showing, which is very misleading. But, a lot of basic stuff. And Henry, you do a lot more of like resin work too. Yeah. Any of you guys have experience with resin at all? Anything? Well, resin's very expensive, and resin's very toxic. You do. I know you do. So yeah, didn't you do some casting too?
Yeah, I've got some resin casting experience. So resin is scared of resin because they think that it's like a completely different process than building a plastic kit. And it's got some things that are different. There are a few extra steps you need to take. Some of the build procedures a little bit different, but by and large, it's not that much different than a plastic kit. You got to do more cleanup. It's generally a good idea to wash the parts with some soapy water. Release some of the greasy residue off there, so make sure your paint doesn't peel off while you're in the painting process. And then the nub marks are different because the gates are much bigger on resin parts, so there's a little bit more sanding and cutting you'll have to do to clean those up. And then it really depends on if you get like a conversion kit or a full resin kit. Conversion kits usually will take like a master grade inner frame, and you can just snap the resin armor onto the outside. Most of those don't require a whole lot of glue. Full resin kits usually require a bit more work. They'll are pinning, or just like little metal rods, and drill holes and glue those in place. Sometimes people use magnets to put the resin kits together, little super strong neodymium magnets. And after that, the painting process isn't as pretty much the same as a plastic kit from that point on. It's just the assembly and the prep work is a little bit different.
Yeah. That also goes into anything with Gunpla. Gunpla is really, it's like 99% prep work. It really is all about sanding and primer and sanding and primer and more sanding and more primer, and then throwing your kit at the wall because, you know, there's one seam line that just doesn't seem to get fixed. But a lot of it is just going over and over and over and over with stuff until you have this like smooth surface, or, you know, getting the exact cut that you want. And the number one thing really about building Gunpla, especially if you're trying to do it at a, you know, you're trying to take that next step, is teaching patience to yourself, because Gunpla, if anything in this world has taught me patience, it was Gunpla. It was really what made me start thinking more about this kit in a day. I can't do this kit overnight. And you were actually the first person that taught me this, because
yeah, I had to slow you down.
Yeah, it was a death scythe, a master death scythe, and I was like, I did this in like a day, and you're like, but what if you took 2 days? I was like, so Henry was just like, just slow down with it, you know, take your time more.
Yeah, it's
because
not a race.
And as I did it, I realized, like I did this, but kind of wish I was still working on it. And then I realized, well, if I was still working on it, it would probably look a lot better. So I decided, you know what? I'm going to take the time. And now it takes me months to do one model. So
how long was Steam Siege? Like 9 months?
Steam Siege took me 9 months. we don't talk about that. But it really does teach you patience in a way, because you have to be so willing to put in the time, because Gunpla takes a lot of time. And it really Gunpla really teaches you how to, especially when you get into like a higher level, it really teaches you how to manage your schedule a little better, balancing it with work or social life or, you know, what have you. You really have to figure out, like, okay, if I spend 30 minutes here, then I can go home and I can sand these parts and see if they're okay, and blah blah blah. And like when I was working on Steam Siege, I take an hour for lunch every day, so I'd come home and I would work for an hour on Steam Siege. And at the end, I realized it was a good thing I did that, because I finished an hour before I had to go pick you up to go to the convention. So it's a lot of time. It's a lot of learning to be patient with yourself, and really saying, like, you look at the part that you have, or you look at the piece and you go, am I satisfied with this? Like, am I completely okay with how this looks, and can I move on from like the next step? So you have to assess it in like chunks, like, you know, work on a leg, work on an arm, and say, okay, the seam line's gone on this, or like, okay, this is good, I can put this to the side. So also, to our live viewers, if you guys have anything we want to talk about or cover, feel free. I see the chat's really active. I can't read everything. Somebody told me to move the GIF so you can see. They're like, will Henry's chin ever be seen? So I decided to move it. Yeah, if you guys want to say anything, I'll see you guys. If you have anything you want to talk about, bring it up, because we can ramble for days about Gunpla, but we want to ramble what you guys want to hear about. So,
but even what he was talking about, even then, it depends on what you really want out of the hobby, because, you know, some people want to do like big, complex, you know, customs and modifications, having these large, extravagant builds, and some people are perfectly happy doing just simple, straight up paint jobs, and that's the great thing about this hobby, is that you don't have to, you know, try to live up to anyone else's standards. Yeah. You can do it at whichever level you want.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, it's your thing. So if you want to do, you know, snap builds and just a OOV paint job,
yeah,
that's just as valid as doing like a big GBWC winning monster robot thing.
As long as you get happiness out of it.
Yeah, that's what matters.
It's a hobby, you know, and it's things that us nerd folk get into that are hobby related. There really isn't too much competitiveness. And while, yeah, there are competitions, like GBOC is a huge competition, IPMS is a competition. Really, at the end of the day, you're competing against yourself, because when you have all these tools at your disposal and you're willing to put in the time and the effort, or if you're just snap building, at the end of the day, the kit comes home with you. Like, you're looking at it. So you bring it home and it's yours, and that little thing is going to stare at you, and like, you're going to feel it looking at you, and you're going to go, am I proud of it or not? And that's what matters. You know, it's even after a competition, even after people win GWC and their kits are on display in Japan, they come back and that kit's yours, and you're going to look at it and you're going to think, did I enjoy this? Like, did I put, you know, the effort that I wanted to put it into it? That's a big thing about Gunpla, is just finding a level that you enjoy it at. And I'm constantly hungry to improve myself. So whenever I finish something, I'm always like, well, I did that, but I can do better. And that's kind of where I've gotten to with Gunpla, because every time I made a kit, I was like, I want to do better. Like, I want to make this look different, or I want to make this look, a different way. Or like, I did a technique that I practiced, and then I realized, well, I can make this look better, but I'll do it on the next one. So I kind of like, improve, and if you want to improve. But if you're comfortable and you make stuff that you're happy with, just stay there, And, I'm all likes to tell people to like push themselves and like take it to the next level if you want. But no, by no means is Gunpla a hobby that you have to be like a pro builder at to enjoy. That's what's so great about it. It's like anybody can build it. I mean, 5-year-old kids can build Gunpla, which is great. We have a lot of people asking questions. People are just asking about dumb questions about, ooh, master grade virtue when? Never. That's one. Somebody asked, yeah.
What's the best type of paint to use on this regular highways?
You don't want my answer.
Like eating through the plastic.
Your what's eating through the plastic?
Like I haven't seen the paint kind of through the plastic.
You're probably using lacquer paint then, because lacquer paint will do that from time to time. I would say to that, are you using primer before you paint?
That's the thing I should probably do.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
The primer is like, you think of the primer as like a shield between the kit and the paint. It'll keep the paint from reacting negatively with the plastic, because sometimes that will happen. Like I said, more so with enamel and lacquer paints. Acrylic, you're pretty much okay. You can use acrylic for pretty much anything. And, it's most acrylics, I think, are non-toxic. That's upside down.
Yeah, just pretend.
But yeah, a lot of people swear by acrylics. They'll use Tamiya and Vallejo and MIG and stuff like that. And I used to use enamel paints forever. I used testers because that was what's readily available around here. And here lately, I've been using lacquer paint, mostly Mr. Color. And unfortunately, that's a little bit harder to find in stores, so I have to order it from Gunpla or Hobby Wave. What's your song?
Shout out to my boys at Gunpla. But yeah, I used to paint with Walmart craft paint, like the 50-cent Walmart paints, and I still use them actually. Not for base coating, but I remember like when I used to hand paint. I used to hand paint everything, and hand painting's fun, but it takes like 10 layers of paint to get your base color down, and that's really like I just want to be done with it. I love hand painting details though. That's one thing that I really do love, and acrylics are the best for that in my opinion. But Vallejo is really good airbrush paint, and I guess I should take a step back. Are you just hand brushing? Is that what you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I suggest using an airbrush for stuff like that. But again, people make incredible things with hand paint. Like the GBWC champion 2 years ago was completely hand painted. Like he doesn't. It's you can do crazy things with hand paint. Especially people that do like Warhammer minis and stuff, and that translates over. Because I started doing Warhammer minis for commissions, and a lot of that detail painting kind of translated into Gunpla. But Vallejo is definitely a good brand to check out. As long as you just thin your paints, because I'll come to your house and slap you if you don't thin your paints. You can hand brush primer, but honestly, back when I was hand painting, I just used Krylon primer.
Yeah,
I just
go to Walmart, get a can of spray paint primer.
Yeah,
usually that's going to be good enough for Gunpla.
Yeah. Don't again, my big stigma, a lot of people like to just spray the runners and then assemble. And I don't do that because it can be used for like a quick paint job, but my suggestion is just like cut your parts out. I mean, I'm assuming you know how to do all that, and then just put each one on a runner and then prime it that way, kind of. And don't do like when you do primer, don't go crazy on it. You don't need a thick coat. You just need like layer that covers the colors up. These guys up here were like really heavily primered, but that was just because they were made from like 900 different parts. Not really, but like yeah, I just wanted them very much primed, so they're covered. So don't listen to the TV, just listen to me. So thin coats of primer, you know, not like just.
Yeah, the general rule of thumb with paint in general is try to use as little paint as possible as long as you're getting everything covered. Because once it's covered, that's when you're good.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. What was the biggest stigma for you when you started building kits more seriously? That's actually a really good question.
I guess for me, starting out was just that I was like a spray can user, and I don't know. I guess it was just kind of the people I was hanging around. I had a lot of like airbrush elitists that I was talking to, and they were like, "Oh, you need to be airbrushing." And like for me at the time, I was perfectly happy.
Yeah,
spray canning. I spray canned for years and years before I even bought an airbrush. And you can do a lot of really good work with spray cans.
Yeah.
You don't have to get an airbrush. And there's even options now where you can kind of go between the two. Like Mr. Hobby just released a airbrush where you like insert a Gundam marker, and it sprays the air through it, and you actually that's where your paint comes out of the Gundam marker. And it just sprays it kind of like those blow pins, like when you were a kid. It works pretty much the same way.
How are you going to go through in like one sitting?
Yeah, that's what we're going to find out. I think it just came out.
It just came out, and Bluefin also announced that it is going to be distributed in America. So we will have lots of them.
Check out Hobbytown or Barnes & Noble. Maybe you'll come across one.
Yeah, any place that carries like Bluefin hobby stuff. Any place that gets Bluefin Gunpla. That's like a huge thing. So they will have that. So that's a good question. I guess for me, like when I started doing it, was like I was really nervous, and that was like the biggest thing with like airbrushing and stuff. My boy Mike, shout out to him. He's like the first person I met in the Gundam community. Anyway, when I started doing it, I was nervous about everything, and airbrushing especially was like the big thing. And I was just like, Henry, how do I do this? Like, you know, like you put the paint in and you spray it. I'm like, but how? like it's like it was just like mind-boggling to me that like, and it's so funny because everybody that gets into airbrushing goes through the same thing, and they're afraid to touch it, or like they're afraid to like interact with it, and they're like, I don't know how to do this. Like, neither did I. You just kind of do it. Like,
I remember when I got my very first airbrush, I put the paint into the airbrush without thinning it.
Yeah.
And it was like this like splatter effect. I was like, that's completely not what I want.
Yeah. I dumped some apple barrel acrylic into the jar, and I was just like, and I was like, Henry, it's not coming out. He's like, well, you got to thin. I was like, oh yeah. So I put some thinner in there, mixed it up. Henry, it's still not coming out. You got to put more in there. And like, I was so like alarmed because I didn't realize how thin you actually have to make your paint when you airbrush it. Because when I hand painted, I didn't thin it that much. It was like more of like a 50 or like a 60-40 ratio. And when I started airbrushing, it's like, no, it's like, it's got to be like milk. Like that's what everyone says. It's got to be like milk. So I finally got it in there, and then I thinned it too much, and I was like, it's not working. What am I doing wrong? I was like, you just got to practice. And I remember like, I was so nervous every time I like sat down at my desk. I just kind of like eye my airbrush and be like, I'm gonna break it or something. And I messaged that to him, and he's like, everybody does this. Everybody like gets nervous about using airbrush, and you'll eventually just pick it up like it's nothing. Like it's literally like my third arm. It's if I got a spray, you know, clear coat, I was like, oh, good. I used to not be abusive to my airbrush.
It eventually just becomes like a routine.
Yeah, it's like learning how to ride a bike. It gets bigger. We have a question back here.
For starters, what are some good tools to get so that like taking out the PGPs, what kind of sandpapers and all that?
Basically like a good sharp pair of cutters, like hobby cutters.
Nippers.
Yeah, the nippers. They're parts that cut out. Just anything sharp that, not scissors obviously, but like any little sharp thing that you can cut out. I used to use, and I still do, not the best things in the world, but you can get little wire cutters from Walmart, and those are kind of the same thing, but hobby cutters are just kind of built for Gunpla, or built for models and stuff like that. Yeah. Check out like Tamiya, because they make really good cutters. Does Mr. Hobby make cutters?
Oh yeah,
Mr. Hobby. That's like a huge modeling company. They make a lot of stuff.
Also, you could go to just like Hobby Lobby or Hobby Town USA.
Yeah.
And they'll have plenty of sprue cutters that you can choose from.
Yeah. So that definitely, good sharp X-Acto blades to trim your nubs. Sandpaper, I buy all of my sandpaper locally. Sometimes, like if you get into more like specialty paint jobs and stuff, you can buy like, really, really high-end grit, or you buy the sanding sponges. But for normal like nub work, I use 400 grit to really like rough sand parts to get like the chunks out. And then I use 2000 to smooth it. So it smooths out all the sanding lines. And always wet sand. So you put in a little bit of like water and you wet sand it, and it makes the part really, really smooth. So those three things are like my staple things that I use for just like snap fitting. And are you talking about like seam fixing, or you just mean just building the actual kit?
Starting off building, like I had issues like I said with the smaller parts of cutting it, where like wouldn't go, down go.
Yeah.
It's correctly focused.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely I suggest that. Gundam Planet also sells, they're kind of more high end, but they're very, very sharp nippers, meant for really doing like precision cutting for smaller parts. They're just called Gundam Planet cutters. I think they're like $30. They're on their website. I use a pair of them and I love them because they cut plastic like butter. Like it's just, sometimes I don't even have to like sand some parts because it cuts it so flush. So I always suggest sanding, because those cutters 99% of the time, even if you use God hand cutters, they'll nub off. But those I suggest for, like, again, if you're having trouble like smaller parts, like on a real grade or a high grade or something that's got like really tiny parts, use something like that. Invest in something really sharp and something that will cut parts like really cleanly. And if you don't want to shell out the, what are God hands now, like,
That's where you get them.
yeah. They're like, you can get Gunpla ones for like $25-$30.
Or even then, you get those little Walmart side cutters with the green handles.
Yeah, those
the
little,
manu
yeah.
And the craft section of Walmart, they got these little flush cutters with the green handle is like $5.
Yeah.
I use those for years.
That and I guess construction wise, that, and then for my key thing is real touch Gundam markers. I like them a lot more than the staple Gundam markers that you can get, because Gundam markers are great. Like, don't get me wrong, I still use Gundam markers. Like, I love them. But the real touch ones are the ones that are meant for like weathering and stuff like that. But you can do panel lining with them, and it makes the panel lining a lot softer, and it makes the Gundam look more, I don't know, like less crisp, I guess. The black, like if you use a black line marker, it really looks like crisp and detailed. But if you use a real touch marker, it's more soft looking, in my opinion.
And they're easier to clean up than the panel line pens.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think they just clean up with rubbing alcohol or something like that. So Gundam marker, just like invest in Gundam marker, because they're really great. Stuff like that. And yeah, you can get like paint pen ones, which are basically for painting. And then there's lining markers, and then there's real touch markers. And then
they also have like a box of fine tip Gundam markers. markers.
Yeah, you can get there's tons of different ones. So if you're doing like little details and stuff, check out the fine tip Gundam markers. I think that's a staple thing, especially if you're just starting out.
And also at like Hobby Lobby and Michael's, you can get the micron pens.
Yeah,
And like the illustration pen and ink section.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to use those for pen lines as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's it for like basic stuff. And then, you know, again, the more you really get into it, the more you figure out like, well, there's this thing on this Gundam that I don't like or I want to change. How do I fix it? And then you start researching like, oh, I do that to fix it. And then you buy, you know, the tool you need for that. And you eventually have more stuff than you have to do. So,
you know, the whole room full of Gunpla supplies.
Yeah, you get to a certain point in the hobby, especially if you invest in tools and you like tools as much as me and Henry do, you get more excited about the tool shipments than you do over the actual kit shipments. And you end up spending, you know, 75% of your model budget on tools, and you get like, oh, I got an SD, all right, oh, I got a high grade, but this. There's so many. Like, I can't keep up with the chat online.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions on here.
Somebody asked, how long do you think it'll be until 3D printing custom parts hits the Gunpla scene in a big way? Guy,
already has started.
Yeah, there's CAD files. Before the high grade of Free came out, there was a CAD file for an entire high grade of Free that somebody was printing, and then Bandai made it. But Makana Man, he's a buddy of ours that lives down in Australia. He has a 3D printer, I believe, and he did a huge video series on 3D printing Gundam parts. And from my experience, they're all right, but I feel like it's more effort to clean up than it would be to just literally scratch build it from plastic or putty or something.
Yeah, it's not like you can just print it out of the 3D printer and it'll be ready to paint. That's people have is that you can just print something out and then paint it as if it's a plastic model kit you just bought.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of cleanup and there's a lot of limitations to the shapes that you can.
Yeah. I also find that other like epoxies and stuff like that are a lot easy to manipulate and create them into the shapes that you want. Way easier than it is to just 3D print it, because if I want like a circular shape, I'm gonna make it out of milliput because I can literally carve it and sculpt it with my hands and smooth it the way I want it to. And with CAD printing, it's like you can calculate it exactly, but you don't get a feel for it until it's actually printed, and you're like, well, this isn't what I wanted. I'll print another one. So, in my opinion, I think 3D printing is great for some things, but in reality, I really don't think it has that much of a big presence in Gunpla. And I know a lot of people use 3D printed parts sometimes, and when I see them, they're very obvious that they're 3D printed. There's like, they don't clean the notches, yeah, in them.
I mean, it definitely has its place. It's good for prototyping. Like if you're willing to make like a basic shape and then build onto that or clean that up to make your final version, then yeah, 3D printing definitely has a use. It's just more limited than what a lot of people seem to think it is.
Yeah. And I should have made someone like a moderator in this chat. Do you ever wince when you go to cannibalize an expensive rare kit, or is that just a normal thing for you? Oh my god. So
these Zeongs that you just cannibalize.
I have a graveyard of Zeongs. So for GPWC, I used 3 Zeong kits. And one of them was actually, the worst one was the high grade, because literally all I took are the horns. I bought 2 Master Zeongs. Was literally just for the lower arms, like that, and the rest of the kit is just unassembled in my junk pile. So it doesn't make me like cringe really, because I do recycle parts. I have a huge parts collection, and lately I've gotten kind of more into kit bashing. Jeremy did this, he's in the chat now, when I don't know if you guys remember this when the Side Stories game came out and they first released the Pale Rider, the metal one. He doesn't like keep anything like out of the box. He's like, I'm gonna customize this and I'm gonna piss everybody off. And he did, and he still laughs about it because people were so salty. You know, 4 P Bandai versions of it, so whatever. But the metal one he did cannibalize. But in my opinion, if you're taking something that, you know, because limited or rare kits, I collect them because I'm a huge like collector of all things Gundam. But in my opinion, if you're using it to make something that you'll get more value out of than the limited kit itself, then it's worth it. Because, you know, if you don't enjoy it, then what's the point of owning it? I mean, if you bought it, then you have the right to do anything you want with it. So, and Jeremy, you know, he's made some really great stuff from the P Bandai, what was it, the EZSR, the Foxhound.
Oh yeah.
And he used that as like a custom base for something, and you know, it looks cooler than, you know, all of his customs end up looking cooler than the thing that he sacrificed anyway. So, yeah.
What was your favorite full kit one that you ever made? What was your favorite custom one that you made?
It's so hard for me to pick because my kits are literally just like my children. The only customs I've ever really made are the ones you're seeing on screen, and one that I made forever ago that I'm actually planning on making a remake of. Favorite customs that I made were my little Steam guys that you're seeing up here because they took the most time out of anything I've ever done. But my favorite kit out of everything that I ever made, for a long time, it was, you can't really see it, but also all you guys, you're free to like come up here once we're done talking to like look at our kits because I know you probably can't see them. But the Gym Sniper that I did up here was my favorite for a long time, and my Zaku 1. Now it's the one that I finished the day before I flew out, my Grimgird from IVO. So it kind of changes. I think it's really like, I get more excited about certain ones than other ones, but I really love them all. They're all my kids. So, what about you?
I think my favorite custom is definitely hands down the Tengu Gundam up here. I feel like that's the one where I was able to get the most creative. Really put a lot of there was a lot of heart that got put into that kit. As far as just straight builds, honestly, it might even be this goof that I just finished, the HY2M, and because this was like one of the holy grail kits for me, because it's kind of a rare limited kit, and I was really wanting to get a hold of it for a long time, and I was happy to finally get one. And then I ended up painting it up and taking it to New York for GBWC this year. So that was one I was really happy to get around to paint and finish. And even though it's more or less OOB, just straight out of the box and painted, it turned out pretty well, I think. And a lot of people seem to like it. So
Yeah, he has to stop me from taking it every time I see him. I want that one.
If it ever goes missing, I'll know where it is.
Yeah, so I think those are my 2 favorites. I'm trying to think about my favorite thing that you've done, or my favorite thing that you've done is either that or he did a GPO1 a while ago. Perfect grade. That was really cool. I don't know if you were talking about this earlier. I think I was talking with Josh about it. I want to talk about Topcoat a little bit because Topcoat is either your best friend or your worst enemy. So when I got into Gundam, my favorite, or Gunpla, my favorite thing was to see on kits, and I really wanted to like get sort of like this soft vinyl look to them, like the vinyl toys and stuff. And I loved that, and I knew how to do it, and I experimented with like a million different top coats. And at the time, I didn't really know about like humidity or the way the temperature affected things. So I would take my kits outside in the snow and just, and then I would come back inside and be like, why is it changing? Like, actually, I did this. I was actually commissioned by Taj Gibson of the Chicago Bulls to do some models for him. And I had to drop them off at Otakon to give them to Jeremy so he could take them to the city to give back to him. And I was top coating a perfect grade GPO1 outside, and it was so humid that it frosted the entire kit. maybe he won't care, and he didn't. So I thought it kind of looked cool. But top coat is really important, especially when you're airbrushing, because your paint layers become so much thinner than when you're hand paint. Well, I guess they're thin when you hand paint. But when you spray can, I think they're a little thicker. But the big thing that I use is I actually use floor polish to coat all of my models before I weather them or do anything else, because it protects all the paint. And you really want to find something that'll seal that in before you start doing like weathering or start applying decals or washes or stuff, because it can actually interact with the paint and mess your paintwork up. So gloss coat is usually what I do first, and then I add flat coat. So if you like flat coat, there's flat coats. If you like gloss coats, there's gloss coats. And if you get into, if you do spray cans or like hand painting, there's like a ton of different things to choose from. And if you get into airbrushing, there's literally like an infinite number of things to pick from. But if you guys are interested in like, you know, starting off and doing some more, just getting something to protect your models, Krylon, everybody talks down on Krylon, but I like it, and I like using it for some things. Useful for some things, but some things no, some things yes. You have any top coat horror stories?
Yeah, I've had bad top coat issues with decals before. Like I would go outside back when I was still spray canning. Like I would have the water slide decals on my kit, and I'd do the top coat, and like all the decals would just frost over and turn white. And I came to realize it was like you said, a humidity issue.
Yeah.
Top coat can be really finicky with humidity, and that's one of the reasons I was really glad when I finally moved my painting indoors and got a spray booth, because I didn't have to worry about humidity or heat or cold or wind or rain or bugs sticking to my parts and stuff like that. So, but yeah, it can happen. The top coat can sometimes frost. Sometimes it can make your decals fog over. There are things you can do to fix. Like I was using an acrylic-based top coat. It was Krylon, I think.
Yeah.
And I found out that if I just took a little bit of rubbing alcohol on a Q-tip and wiped that over the decals, it would sort of make them clear up a bit. And if I just sort of kept with that, they would eventually clear up. And then I went back and top coated again on a less humid day, and they turned out fine. So luckily I was able to fix it.
Okay, we got the question we always get: Xeon or Fedius? Who wants to fight? I love both, honestly. I love mobile suits of all kinds from all generations, but I really love Xeon. So
yeah, Xeon.
Yeah, I love like razzing on my Fed buddies, because I'm always just like at least we had one company that made our mobile suits. And they're like, oh well.
At least for a while.
Yeah, for a while, and then Anaheim. But yeah, so that's always a fun question to answer. Somebody asked me how I made water from my dioramas. Last year for GVC, I did a big diorama. I'll bring it up now. I do water effects for some things. And funny story. So I like to procrastinate in life. And for GBWC last year, I had 10 days. I had 10 days to do my entry. And while I did get it done and I ended up getting second place, I was very stressed out. It was way more stressful than I think it had to be. So another thing is, do enjoy your gunplay at your own leisure, go at your own pace. But if you have a competition, start more than a week in advance. Just a thought. I learned the hard way. So there are great water effects, because a huge thing that I'm really into is model railroading. And I use a lot of things that people use in model railroading for my dioramas. But the bottle, I did not read clearly, was a light pour. You remember that? The whole, I'm trying to bring it up on my computer's laggy. It was a big like and it had these like 2 Xeon units in it. And what my plan was is I was going to fill the whole thing with water and eventually carve more of the sculpting like water effects onto it. And I poured it, and I was like, cool, I just gotta let that. And he messaged me, he's like, Ed, that's not deep pour, that's gonna take like 3 months to dry. And I was like, oh, I don't have that time. So I went out, and my girlfriend here was like, buy clear resin, just pour resin in it. So I did. So I dumped a huge lot of resin into it, and it worked. So that was this piece. This is called a bridge too far. So all the water here was, again, it was pretty deep, but all this water effect was not going to dry. So I dumped resin in there. And the cool thing is, I don't think I mixed it correctly because it rippled when I poured it. But I was like, no, no, it's good. It's water. It's supposed to do that. I'm like, just leave it. It's fine.
Sometimes accidents work.
Yeah, yeah. So a lot of the ripples that are not these are all sculpted on with water effects, but all this was just a happy accident, as Bob Ross would say. So yeah, that's how I do water. I do the wrong thing, and then I find resin. What Gundam series has influenced you the most? You can go.
I'm trying to answer this question.
I wonder.
Yeah. For anyone who doesn't already know, Gundam Wing is definitely my biggest influence. One Gundam Wing kit here, the Leo, but definitely done more wing kits than anything else. I'm a sucker for nostalgia, so it's not the best Gundam series, but I love it anyway. So,
I just love everything. Wise, I really loved Unicorn because as a big UC nut, when I was like younger and I didn't really know anything about Gundam, I was like, what is this thing? So I watched it. I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but it's cool. And eventually I realized that, okay, so this is like, you know, a part of a bigger thing. So I went back and I watched UC, and I don't know how to do slideshows anymore, apparently. So I went back and I watched it all, and I watched it, and I thought Unicorn was like the coolest wrap up for a Gundam series because of the way that, because I'm all about that glittery, floaty new type shit. I love it. So I loved the way Unicorn ended. I loved the way that they did it, and a lot of people like have problems with Benager, but I think he's great. But influential wise, it's hard to say, but I think it was Double O, because Double O, you know, my username's Double O Gunner Reviews, but that was like the first show that really like hooked me in the franchise as a whole, and it really made me want to like get the kits and build, and I think really that's what did it for me. So influential wise, I guess I would say Double O, because Double O was like really what was like shoving kits down my throat or making me want to, you know, buy 30 of them. And it was great because, you know, Bandai loves the recolors, and I bought every single one because I didn't want to paint, and I was like, oh, Trans Am of every single thing, yes, please give me that. So yeah, Double O.
And Double O is the one that got me back into Gunpla, because I'd been building for, I don't know, 5 years or so, and I started to just sort of fade out of Gunpla, and then Gundam 00 came out and just reignited me, and I was back into it even more than before. That's when I ended up starting my YouTube channel, and that just took off as big as it did.
How many wars has plot armor allowed the Federation to win? Oh no.
Started.
That's for the other panel. That's not for us. Yeah. So I guess, you know, we've talked about a lot of stuff. We still have like another hour, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Yeah.
And, any of the new people in the audience?
Yeah, we got some more people in here. We are giving out kits. You were not lied to.
Yeah.
No,
We have kits to give away.
Not the painted ones, but the box ones. So
Yeah.
you can come up and see the kits, and then you can have the chance to actually win some of the kits these were based on. So that's cool. I had bullet points that I want to talk about, and whenever Gundam comes up, I'm just like, so, blah, 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 blah. Oh, this is a big thing. So everybody in the community very relatable to fashion in a way because trends become these huge things. And if you follow Gunpla as much as I do, like come in and out of style, if that makes any sense. Like new tools will arise and like new parts will come out and people just go crazy with them because they're like, well, I need to use that. It's the hip new thing. And a big thing is like really heavily scribed stuff that was like huge for a while. And it just seemed like everybody and their mother was doing these like insane scribing projects. And scribing is where you add all like the new detail lines and all that. And it can be done really tastefully, but there's some people that just like, there's either
really get carried away.
Yeah, there's either the people that do it like casually, and then there's the other people that just like they do everything that is currently popular, I guess. And there's nothing wrong with that because it's like you're trying to learn new styles and you're trying to kind of like things. I think that's great, but a lot of people like for competitions will just kind of do what they think the judges want to see, and it's like clearly there's like bias there because they're like, oh, if I scribe this, I'll place, or if I add a bunch of lines, or if I glue a bunch of parts onto something, it's like it'll win. And it's really not what Gunpla's about. It's about creating something that you like, not what everybody else likes. So that's a huge thing, like trend wise, I think, and like
also with like trends with painting techniques. Like right now, modulation is really big.
Yeah, modulation's so in right now. Yeah, I love shading. I love the style that they did in the '80s, sort of. I really love heavily shaded stuff. I think that you can really like take other people's styles and kind of combine it with your own and make it into whatever you want. But I don't think it's really good to like just directly copy people because a lot of people do that.
Like, be influenced by people, but don't just like straight up try to copy someone else's style.
Yeah, be inspired for sure. Oh, it's slideshow button. There it is. Be inspired by other people for sure, but like taking bits and pieces and making them into your own thing. I think that's a real big important thing with Gunpla. Because I remember like when I was in 5th grade, I was really good friends with this girl and she drew anime photos and I was like, I want to draw anime photos. So I started drawing them and she got really mad at me because my eyes looked the same as hers. She's like, those are my eyes. They're my signature thing. I was like, okay. So I kind of like tweaked them a bit to be different enough to be like my own style. And eventually they just kind of grew into my own thing. So even if you practice like copying other people's styles or, applying things that other people do to your work, you can eventually kind of swing it and it'll evolve into your own thing because whether or not, you like it or not, you can't 100% copy anything and eventually it's going to become your own style. But that was like, I don't know, that was such a huge thing like 3 years ago when like people like Toy Maker and all them, they just started doing like these huge like scribed builds. Like everybody just did them and I was like, like who just gave out like free scribers to everyone. Okay, so that's all. Let's see. If you were a mobile suit pilot, which suit would you be the pilot of? Is there less Gunpla, but whatever. Probably a custom. I mean, like I would want my own thing.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Some kind of grunt suit, like a soccer or something.
Maybe a soccer with a red shoulder.
I went into the big red shoulder thing. That's never caught on with me.
You know where it came from? Photons.
Photons, yeah.
Photons. I don't know. For me, I guess because me being the daydreamer, I always put myself into like build fighter scenarios where I'm like, yes, I'm gonna build this kid and I'm gonna kick everyone's ass with it. So I guess if I was gonna pilot anything in the world, it would be a Gunpla that I made. And probably be my Crossbone Storm thing that I made, forever ago. Actually, I'll bring that up. Crossbone Storm was my first custom that I ever did, and I made it because it was for a contest or a big group I was in, and I got really sick while I was building it. And I ended up placing, yeah, there it is. I I took a Exia and I took Crossbone and I just kind of smashed them into one big thing. I can't show it on the thing, but this guy would be my custom. That's the one I made. Yeah. So let's see.
That's something I have yet to do, is make my own custom.
Yeah.
That's one thing I've always been kicking around in my head, but I just haven't come up with one I really like yet.
So somebody asked, why is the Master Grade Rigazi the worst kit ever made? And I disagree with you, because that is the Master Grade Dark Hound. That kit. Okay, so I used to work for a company in California called Tatsu Hobby, and I reviewed all their products and stuff, and they would send me like all the new kits when they came out. And the last thing they ever sent me, because they kind of said they're like, hey, we want to be more local, so no offense, but bye. So they're like, we'll give you this one last one. It's a big Master Grade. So I built it, and it was literally like the worst insult to Gunpla that I've ever put together, and I somehow ended up with 3 of them. And I think people like would, because I used to buy like scraps, or I'd do like big trays with my friends, and they would just like stick it in there. I'm like, haha. And then like the 3rd one came, I'm like, stop. I don't want this anymore.
Just pile them all in.
I started just giving them to people, because I'm just like, please, like, I don't.
Me.
I did. So if you get one from me, it's nothing personal. I just hate it. So that's probably that kit and the Master Grade Unicorn are probably the 2 biggest kits I've ever had issues with. Unicorn's not that bad, but the full armor parts just kind of make me want to scream.
I've always been the Unicorn defender.
I know.
I'll defend Master Grade Unicorn every day. It's not a perfect kit, but
no,
I love it. I've built like 4 or 5 of them.
It's not like bad. I just really don't like it. Somebody called it the Duck Hound. The real grade. Somebody mentioned the real grade Sinanju. The real grade Sinanju was bad because they used the real grade Mark II's frame for it, which makes no sense because the Mark II is puny compared to the Sinanju, and they're like, we don't want to invest in the technology to make a big frame. Let's just put it on a tiny one, and let's see where that happened. He gave me a. Somebody in the chat's like, he gave me one too. It's Jeremy. Oh yeah, I did. I gave one to Jeremy. Yeah, let's see. So we have more people in the room now. When when you guys started in here, I asked a question. I obviously know what Gundam is, because you wouldn't be here if you didn't. Except you. But where are you guys like build wise? Like, what do you guys like to do? Are you guys mostly like snap fitters or painters? Do you like seam fixing? And what do you guys want to know? Because that's pretty much what we're here to talk about. Is not just to talk about what we do. We want to know like what, we're not the most perfect builders, but whatever knowledge we have, we want to help like spread to the community. So.
Where do I start from resin? Because I'm so scared of it. I have 2 resin kits back that like in the back, someone staring at you going, you want to build me. Build again.
Are they full kits or conversion kits?
One's conversion kit, one's a full kit. I'm not in here. Short brain. It's the conversion kit that does the one.
The thing to the thing.
The one that I can't remember why. I'm scared of it. That's why.
Is it Master Grade or High Grade?
It's a high grade. It's the one that
Well, resin is like, if you have a statue, you kind of treat it a little differently than an add-on kit.
Yeah.
But you can talk about this because you're the resin person. So.
Basically, you're going to take the kit out of the box and immediately put all the parts in like a little bowl and put some soapy water, like dishwashing liquid or something. Let that soak overnight. Get them out, scrub them down in the sink. Just give them a nice little bath, dry them off, and Then you're going to be cleaning the nub marks, kind of like on a plastic kit, but it's just like the gates are a lot bigger, and you'll just have to cut those off. Do a little bit more sanding than usual. And then depending on, like, if it's a conversion kit, a lot of those will just snap onto the plastic kit you're using as the base. And you can just sort of, sometimes you'll need to do a little bit of modification. Sometimes they'll go on perfectly fine. No mods needed, but occasionally resin kits will require you to like drill holes. So I would suggest getting a pin vise. Okay, and then like a little set of drill bits. And that's another thing that I really recommend for people, not just with resin kits, but anyone who's into modding, is invest in a set of metric drill bits, because everything coming out of Japan is in metric, and everything here is not. So I actually just went on eBay and ordered a set of like 20 drill bits from England, and they were all metric, so that's been a huge help. Because now I don't have to like guess and eyeball which drill bit's going to be the right size for the hole I need to make. So that was a lot of help. And then, just get some brass rods, and those will be really helpful for pinning. Are you familiar with the pinning process at all?
I've seen you and Justin do it.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean, it's really straightforward. Drill a hole, put the metal rod in there, cut it off, a little bit of super glue, you're done. It's basically just a peg, but being metal, it's going to be a bit more secure. And since resin is heavier than plastic, it'll hold that in place a lot more securely. A lot more securely than if you were just super gluing them together. Because these resin kits, especially when you get like 1 to 100 or 172 or 160 a scale, they can get really, really heavy. Super glue, you might think in your head super glue is strong enough to work, and you'll put it in there and then put the whole thing together and it'll just fall apart. But yeah, those pins will definitely help out with that and keep it all together for you.
Yeah. Also with resin, one thing that I've experienced is sometimes, because resin's very porous, invest in what was it, thin putty?
Yeah.
There's like thin down putty you can get.
Or you can just get regular putty and thin it.
Yeah, so invest in putties for resin, because there's usually pores, and invest in sandpaper, and always wear protection when you're sanding resin, because resin is very toxic. And I know you're not the biggest protection guy, but I've been taught by this one about resin, because my girlfriend here does a lot of stuff with resin. Yeah, wear respirators, wear a dust mask at the very least. Just don't snort it. I know it's so tempting. You can smell it. It smells good, but just don't snort it.
And another thing about resin, primer is an absolute must. Yeah, paint won't stick to resin. You have to use primer.
Yeah.
The version I had is the Schuster.
Oh, yeah.
I got that years ago.
That one,
I
yeah.
just forgot about it.
No, you had the full.
I got the full shooter. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah. It's
Okay.
this guy.
I really want to build it. I'm just like looking
Right.
Do I really want to just like, I want to like, just stares at me like, I get it.
It's this guy, right?
Yeah, that one.
That's
Yeah.
shooter. Yeah.
It just stares at me. I go downstairs and it's just like,
Yeah. That's a fun Zaku, Mr. Fist Stomach.
But it looks
Does it's
Yeah.
a fun kit.
This one fancies it.
Yeah, it's AOZ. That was when I was on that weird little AOZ high grade or 144 kick.
Yeah.
Because I did that one and I did the one vort. Somebody asked what our Grail kit is.
Grail kit. This was my Grail kit for a while, the Goof, but obviously I've got it now. I guess what would be my Grail kit now? I have several Grail kits that I would love to get. The Hildolfer from MSA Glue, that'd be a fun kit. That's kind of rare. You don't really see those very often.
Yeah, they have one in Chinatown.
We're a long way from Chinatown right now. But I guess some of the P Bandai kits that are like haven't been reissued, like the S Gundam BST with like the big boosters instead of legs. Of course, I'm a sucker for Gundam stuff also.
Yeah. Mine. Well, I don't know if it counts as a kit, but I want the giant Gundam to have a Gundam planet really bad.
Or the 112.
Yeah, okay, so I'm friends with the guy that owns it, and he owns all like the props that they have there, and I've like told him I want that one, and he's like, "We can get them on Madarake for cheap." I'm like, "No, I want that one. Like, I want to take it home on the subway with me." So, yeah. On that, I really want some of the HYMs, like the 1/24 scale kits, just because I love collecting all like the vintage stuff. But normal like model kit wise, the B Club. Crossbone Gundams, X1 and 2, because I have 3. I have the original cast with the original joints. And there's like one other thing. There's just, I don't know, there's like some kits here and there that I'm just like, I want, but they're not like really rare. So it's like, I could just get it, but I'm just like, I wouldn't dream about it as much. So,
yeah, there were a couple B Club Gundam Wing kits I never did get around to getting, like the 2 Virgos.
Yeah.
I like to have those.
So you know that. There's like I really want the Dom from this series.
Yeah.
I really wanted the Goof. There's actually a B Club Zeong, because Zeong is my favorite mobile suit. There's one on the B Club one on eBay right now. I really want that thing. So yeah. What is your favorite Astra from Seed?
Gold frame before it was gold and black, like the original.
Yeah, the original white and gold. Yeah.
I just like the white and gold better than black and gold.
Yeah. I just love red frame. Red frame's cool. He's a cool dude. I like red frame, and I really like green frame, like the basic green frame. And it's not a matter of like what's your favorite Astra. It's like, what color do you like the best? I like green. He said blue frame. Okay. So back into Gunpla. So maybe a couple of you know, if you ever see my kits, and you will know after you come up here, I really love weathering. So I want to talk about weathering for a couple minutes, because that's my favorite thing to do. Don't let your kits on fire.
Yeah.
Don't light your kits on fire. Don't put firecrackers in your kits. Yeah, it's also toxic.
Don't poke your kits with a soldering iron to make bullet holes.
Yeah. To be fair, that's kind of what I did when I started weathering, because you can get like singe marks and stuff like that, and like, you know, like beam cut and effects, and it does look like melted armor in some ways, but you can really overdo it. I remember
really easy.
I was in this group one time, and this kid just had a shield, and the shield was just literally on fire. It's like I'm weathering it, and it was like it wasn't up, it was like down. The plastic was like melting off of it, and there's only like half the shield left. I'm like, and then a while ago there was this meme going around where this guy like put a Zaku in with a bunch of like cherry bombs, and like someone shared it as a joke, and then someone else was like, "That's not a bad idea." I was like, "No, it is." Don't do that. But yeah, weathering, I mean, like, really, it's very, very, very suggestive, because a lot of people say like, "Oh, well, this is realistic," or like, "This is realistic," but it's like they're giant robots. They don't exist.
Nothing realistic about them.
There's nothing to compare them to. Like, there's some guy that got into an argument with me.
It's
not fighting anything right now yet. Somebody was like why would you panel line models? Like, cars aren't panel lined. I was like, what? Like, so like I don't like in life, if you look at like some creases and things, like things get into the creases, and it's like
there's a black line along your car doors. So.
Yeah, it's the rubber insulation between parts, and I don't think that's exactly what Gunpla represents all the time with panel lines, but again, so much subjectivity to it. It's like, what is defined as wrong? Like, what can you really define as wrong in a series that is about fictional robots fighting each other? It's
I
like,
remember talking to one guy who was like, in real life, these machines would be so well maintained that none of them should look weathered at all. And I was like, okay, that floats your boat.
that was the big thing that I got into with these guys, because this is my Operation B team, and my Gundam is pristine, but the gun tank and the gun cannon are weathered. And I didn't get into this argument. Somebody else started arguing about it, and they're like, "Why is the Gundam clean? Like, doesn't the Gundam see the most combat?" And someone's like, "Well, Gundam's the flagship unit. They're gonna clean it up the most." And they just went at it. And I was like, "I just painted it. Like, relax." And the funny thing is, I have a weathered one. I'm like, "Here, you both win. Like, there you go." So it's like, it's subjective, and like what you do, like you can't really like, okay, you can't really determine exactly like what would happen, because like, I mean, if you even look at Gundam series, like the way things get damaged is completely different. Sometimes things take bullet holes, sometimes things have rust, sometimes they just blow up. So there's an infinite amount of techniques and like things you can do to your Gunpla. As long as you can kind of like explain your weathering, I think that's the most important thing for me. So I love weathering because I love chipping and streaking and all that fun stuff. And I hate myself when I'm actually doing it, because I'm just like, oh my God. Because a lot of people use like the hairspray technique to weather, but I hand chip everything. Like every little dot that you see on that was hand painted, everything. And it's very tedious, and it's very like time consuming, but
Most of the time the weathering takes longer than the actual paint job.
Yeah.
Depending on how much you do.
Yeah, the weathering and the prep work are my two biggest things. But weathering is it's a lot of fun, but the number one thing to remember is always that you can overdo it very easily. You can very easily make a mobile suit that looks like it's seen a good amount of combat. You know, you take it one step too far and it looks like it's part of a junkyard. So it's always like how much you really want to do it, and you really have to envision like what you want your unit to like look like. It's got a story. Does it have like some sort of complex thing that happened to it to get it into this state? Why does it look this way? Is it in a battle? Is it about to launch out of a battle? Was it resurrected after 100 years? You know, that's what weathering is. Because a lot of people say, you know, oh, I want to weather it realistically. But it's like robots. Like you can weather them any way you want. Like a lot of people argue, like, well, why would this have rust on it? It's made of this kind of alloy. I'm like, it's not real. So, I don't know. I love weathering. I think it's fun. I think it just brings more life to some kits. I think gives them a little character sometimes. And it's really interesting to see like weathering on different modelers, because everybody just does it differently.
Yeah,
And people like try to copy others, or like they're like, this is literally A to B how you do it, and like you give that A to B example to like 10 people and none of them will do it the same way. And I think that's so cool.
Yeah, that's the thing about weathering, is that there's a million different ways to do weathering, and each one of those ways can look good. Question.
On the whole thing about weathering and painting, like, does that change the way that the model actually moves? Like a structure or whatever? Yeah, paint layers or whatever. Does it make it heavier, like top heavier?
As far as like weight goes, no. The only thing it could affect is like the joints. A lot of times, the thicker the paint is on the kit, the tighter the joints are going to get. So if you're into changing the pose of your kit every now and then, maybe try to go with a thinner paint job or less weathering, or even just less weathering around the joint areas.
Yeah.
Because the more stuff you've got in those joints, as far as paint and wash and chipping and dirt and all that, the stiffer it's going to get.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can use that to your advantage. Like if the kit is loose right out of the box, you can add some paint or some weathering and it'll tighten it up for you and it'll be just right.
Yeah. One thing my brother Jeremy yells at me about all the time is sand for clearance. Always sand for clearance. But sometimes kits are so loose that they need more paint, so don't sand for clearance. So if you have a kit that has like a really tight joint after you built it, after you build it, sand that down, because if you get any paint on that, it's literally, as you move it, it's either going to snap the peg, or it's just going to scratch, or something's going to happen. So always be careful with that. As far as like build up on weathering, I don't like really mucky. There's a reason I pause this. So like on here, kind of, oh, it's tiny. Oh. On here, you can see like I built up some dirt and rust and different kind of like crap in the grooves and stuff. But really, that's really the only spots that you add like build up, I guess, of things that are like, you know, subject to that, because this is an indented part. So you have this little nook that's by the foot. So anything by the, you know, his big foot is going to get some kind of crud in it. But weight wise, I don't think it really affects it too much. But yeah, again, be like careful weathering around like joints and stuff, because
also washes. If you do like an oil or enamel-based paint wash to do like a streaky or a grimy effect, make sure you're using primer, because enamel thinner can affect the integrity of the plastic, and it can make it crack a little bit more easily. So just be careful with that.
Yeah. That's an interesting question. Somebody asked us, who's your favorite mobile suit designer?
Kentucky.
I want to say Katoki, but I have Katoki, Naoki, and Ibakawa, probably.
I really like Okawara's
Okawara,
designs, but I usually always like them better when Katoki redesigns them.
Yeah,
or reproportions them.
Yeah, you know, puts a foot onto the legs, and there you go. Yeah, Katoki's has been one of my all-time favorite designers ever since I was like a kid, because I remember like seeing all the kits that would come out, and then I saw like the Ka versions of them where they're like, I love decals, so I'd see like all the decals and lines, and I was like, that one, I like that one, and he just does pretty artwork. So yeah, okay.
There's someone who asked, how do you measure things properly and make them symmetrical when you're customizing a kit?
I don't.
You just eyeball everything.
Yep.
I used to be that way. I used to eyeball a lot of stuff, but here lately, in the last few years, I've really gotten more disciplined into measuring things properly. And a lot of people use like a little digital caliper. I'm not quite there yet, although I have been thinking about buying one. But yeah, just get a little metric ruler and familiarize yourself with the metric system if you're not already. So pretty much everything on a Gundam kit is going to be in either centimeters or millimeters. And like even like this little Grimgird here, like you can measure the little part on the visor, and I guarantee you it's going to be like a round metric number. Like it'll be like 6 millimeters or something, because that's just the way that all Bandai's kits are designed. So
yeah.
Just it's once you get into the habit of measuring things out, especially even like when you're scratch building things, it helps to get like a piece of graph paper and draw the part you want to build out first, and then like put that on the plot plate and start cutting out to make your custom parts. And that'll just measuring everything will help you do that and keep things symmetrical, and they'll line up a whole lot better and make your life a whole lot easier when you're customizing.
Yeah. Going into that, when I started building Steam Siege, I completely winged everything. I played the Work in Progress album already, but I'll bring it up again to show it off. So I use Milliput, which is a 2-part epoxy, to sculpt a lot of things. And I don't know, I'm very like not about numbers, and it's a very good thing to do for sure, like what Henry said. But again, I'm the kind of person that just likes to take a part and another part and go, and then yeah, it's like it's a good thing to try to make things like symmetrical. But like for this part where I built the boiler, because it's a comfort chest, and I just took the steam engine boiler and I just literally smushed it in there with Milliput, and I sanded it and sanded it and sanded it, and after I got done, I realized the smokestacks are actually like 2 different sizes. One's a little higher than the other one, they actually, this doesn't count because I cut them off after this and redid them, but basically the left one like sticks out onto the left a little bit more. But yeah, it's really good to measure. Also, you can kind of see on them, I did this riveting thing.
You spent so long with those.
Yeah, all these little dots, all of these, actually, I got a better photo of that. All of them were individually placed rivets, and I did that with this stuff. And these are just these little tiny micro beads that you can get at Michael's. And for every single rivet, I would drum a hole with drill it out a little bit, take a little dab of super glue, put a little on my workbench, take some glue tag, single one of these up a little bit with the super glue and the slots that they were supposed to go. And that made me go insane. I did stuff
like 200 on each arm.
There was 250 on each lower arm part. That does not count the actual Steam Boys. See if I can find a picture of one of the chests after I detail it. Yeah, lots of rivets, lots of but yeah, you can kind of see it there. Yeah, all those little dots are individually placed rivets. So anyway, this does have something to do with the math. So when I was doing this, I thought, I didn't think that. I was thinking, maybe I should measure this out. Maybe I should figure out where to put it. I was like, nah. And as I'm building this, I'm realizing like, this is like not enough room as the other side has, or like this side can fit 4 and this side can fit 5, and I'm really anal about those things, so I want them to be even. So I had to like kind of fudge it in certain areas. But measuring is very important, I would say. That's something I need to teach myself. You can also make cool things by winging it, I think. But measuring, if you want to become very precise with building Gunpla, it's a very important thing to do. But what do I know? So that's cool.
Someone asked, do you try to go for a specific design aesthetic?
You or me, or just both of us?
Both of us.
Not really. I just kind of like, I want to make this thing.
Just doing what feels good.
Yeah, and like I never have a game plan with my kits when I start them. Like I'll start it and just be like, all right, I think I'm gonna do it like this. Like the Grimgird, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna paint it like the normal Grimgird, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna do yellow or orange, and then I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna put caution stripes on it. Why not? But no, I never really have a game plan. I just kind of, I'm like, eh. Aesthetic wise, I do try to make my weathering kind of precise, and I do kind of follow this predictable weathering pattern. But I guess the aesthetic I go for is more of like the older vintage, like 80s, 90s stuff, and other modelers from that era. I tried to kind of do that on my RX up here, and I do that on all my models, but it's really hard to see because the weathering kind of takes the shading away from it. But I really like the more smooth looking mobile suits with like the rounded bits and and again, weathering is always nice, but if it boils down to just like the basics, it's always like heavily shaded high grades with nice decals. I guess that's my thing I always go for.
I usually like I go for simplicity. I don't like to make my customs too awfully complex. I'll see a lot of these kits. It's like they just glue parts together, and you've got this big unrecognizable blob of robot parts that, while they can be really impressive, and a lot of those things have won like GBWC and other competitions, it's just not really my cup of tea. I prefer simplicity with my Gunpla. So even if I do customizations, it's usually something that I've got planned out in my head. For most of my projects, I plan out for a couple months in my head before I even actually get around to starting on them. The like Tango Gunham, for example, I had him almost completely mapped out before I even started snapping the kits together. And like the Leo here, while it is customized, used to be a tall geese, it's really, really simple. I tried to make it as line art accurate as I could. I did add some Zimmerit and some weathering and some cracks and chipping and stuff, but overall it's a relatively simple design. I don't really go for complexity all that much.
Yeah. I just did Steam Siege. I really wanted to plan it out and make it this this big thing that really had a set design, because I had a vision for it in my head, and I kind of drew it. And this was the drawing I had for it originally, and it was going to be like this big guy, and some dude was going to come down and like be cutting his arm. There's going to be like an LED in the arm, and like there's this like whole state of like train cars he was going to be like picking up and like whipping into the other guy. I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that, and then I did not end up doing that exactly. It turned out to be this. But you can see the basics kind of were in there with the sketch, but I can never follow like what I'm drawing or like the design that I initially planned, because when I start building, I just kind of go crazy with stuff. I'm just like, we're just gonna do it like this, whatever. So we definitely like have a set like way that each of us do things, but we're also very different from each other, which is very interesting because it taught me. If you take anything away from this, you know, in Gunpla, you don't have to take them exactly as you hear them. You can kind of take them and interpret them as how you see them.
Adapt it to your own style.
Yeah, and apply it to your kits, you know, in a way that you want to. So yeah, I guess we have 20 minutes left. So before I wrap up, is there anything on our live feed or you guys that you want to specifically talk about that we haven't covered yet? You.
Before I ever built like a Gundam model, I didn't really want to draw his teams. I built like car models and other models and stuff like that. I was just curious if y'all started on something else before y'all got into Gundam.
When I was a real little kid, my dad had model ships and he had model houses, and the two don't usually go together, hopefully. But I thought they were so cool, having these tiny things. And as a kid, I really loved like puzzles. I loved putting like puzzles together, and like I especially loved like the 3D construction puzzles and stuff like that. But modeling wise, really, I think I tried like once something, and I just was like, no, this is not for me. And then I, somehow ended up here. But no, I didn't. I didn't actually do cars or anything like that. I've wanted to do like a car, and I've really wanted to do a couple like static steam engine models that I have. But really, it's mainly been Gundam and model trains. Actually, that to be fair, model trains I was into way before Gundam, but I wasn't like painting them or anything. But I appreciated like the small scale modeling work from afar. So I guess I could say that trains were a huge influence on Gunpla for me.
As far as I think my first Gundam kit that I built was maybe the third model kit I'd ever built. I think as a kid I had done like an astronaut model kit, and then I had done a race car, and that was about it. So my first foray into Gunpla was my first serious attempt at any sort of modeling at all. So
yeah. Got a couple more. Is it still worth it to buy old kits, the super old kits? Oh yeah,
yes.
Hell yeah. Old modeling is some of the most fun modeling you can do if you love spending time at your modeling desk.
Several in my backlog right now.
Yeah, I've got a ton too. Like the original like kits they made in the 80s for Gundam are so much fun to do. They're just goofy. They're goofy and they take so much time, but they're so rewarding. So if you ever really want to learn how to do Gunpla on a really high level, I always tell people start with vintage kits, because they will force you to learn how to either mod or mask or fix your seams better than you could ever do it on a high grade. They teach you a lot, so yes, definitely worth it to do old ones.
That's a lot of things. That's the thing about newer kits, is that a lot of newer kits are so easy that you don't really have to do much. Just snap them together and spray some paint on them, and you're good to go.
And there's nothing wrong with that, because I love just like putting a high grade together and only having to fix like 5 seam lines, then being able to paint it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And by all means, doing a kit that has no seam lines and painting it and then doing a kit that has a million seam lines and painting it doesn't make you a better modeler. It makes you a person that likes fixing seam lines.
Yeah.
So, there's nothing wrong with doing any model from any era, but I definitely would say older kits, they teach you a lot. Ed, are you?
Question.
Yeah.
So I've got a high-grade titanium finishing cylinder.
Right.
I kind of thinking that because I don't know, I'm kind of worried about the unlocks on the ruining finish that inspection.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what to do about that. Should I go over it anyway, or
Uh,
I don't know how to approach that.
I'll tell you what. For metallic kits and titanium finish kits and things like that, the best thing to do is to cut the parts off the runners like you normally do. When you go to clean them up, just try to be as careful as possible when if you're doing any sanding or filing or anything to clean those nub marks up. Minimize the amount of damage you're doing to that titanium finish, and then what you can do after that, because that's going to damage the titanium finish. But the way you fix it is you get either a silver paint, or I just noticed this week that Hobby Lobby sells those Molotov chrome paint markers.
Yeah.
You can get those to cover up that nub mark with either silver or chrome paint. And then, like for Sinanju example, get you a little bottle of like Tamiya acrylic clear red paint and go over that. And that should make a really nice chrome red finish to cover up where that nub mark was damaged from cleaning it up.
Yeah. My suggestion is because as much as I love painting my kits, I'm also a big geek for like the clear stuff. I love like the novelty kits, and those have really bad nub marks usually. And normally, if I'm building a plastic model, I don't really care. I'll just sand them away, but you can't really sand clear because it'll look horrible. It depends, but what I suggest also is just using a really, really sharp knife, so your nubs aren't really like all over the place. Use really sharp cutters that are really precise, and then you'll have minimal cleanup. But yeah, what Henry said about the cleanup is probably the best thing you can do with that.
Yeah, there's pretty much no way you can cut it out without damaging it. So your option is to clean up the nub marks and then go back and fix it.
Yeah. Somebody asked me if I know what I'm doing for next year's GBWC. Nope. No idea. Probably won't know till a couple months before it, because that's how I always am usually. Something with trains.
Yeah,
It's always something with trains.
more than likely.
Yeah. All right. So we're not like done yet. We have some kits to give away. We have 15 minutes left. But I just wanted to thank you guys for coming to this. You guys clearly want to know about Gunpla, and that's why we're here. We want to talk about Gunpla. I'll be at the convention all weekend. Henry won't be, unfortunately, but if you see me, you want to talk about kits, come and talk to me about Gundam. It's what I love to do. And by coming here, you guys already have shown initiative that you want to take your modeling to the next level, whatever it may be. If you want to build better, that's what's important. Always be willing to improve. There's nothing wrong with being happy with what you do, but always look at ways that you can fix it or tweak it or build onto it and build yourself. So as much as you build your kits, you build yourself with it. So the fact you all came here today shows really great initiative. It's great seeing people that are invested in this hobby and love it, as much as everyone else. And really awesome to see, I've never been this far south for a Gunpla thing. So this is really cool to see that it literally exists everywhere. So we're all here. So there's a big network on the East Coast, which is really great. So I guess with any leaving words is just, if you are questioning something in Gunpla and you're questioning if you want to do it or not, just do it. Try new things. Try new things with modeling. Buy tools, invest in tools, and invest in knowledge and learning, because in Gunpla, the best weapon you can have is knowledge. It's seriously learning and going through experiences with your kits and building them is what makes people great modelers. And experiences, just like life, they go into your kits. So keep building, and yeah, anything else?
Yeah, pretty much everything you said. Don't be afraid to try anything. A lot of people let fear hold them back because they don't want to mess up their kits or they don't want to do a bad job. But 99% of the way you're going to improve in this hobby is by trial and error. So definitely don't be afraid to try anything new. Even if you don't know how it's going to turn out, once you do it and you'll learn from it, you can do better the next time, and then you'll do better the next time and the time after that. So.
You will ruin 100 kits before you're happy with one sometimes, and that's fine because those 100 kits were the cost of learning how to do it. So
I wish I had a picture of my first kit I could show off.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that's the number one thing that I hear a lot of people like, I'm afraid to do this. Don't be afraid. You know, go forward strong and be brave with it because you got to learn through experiences, you know. You got to trip and fall before you paint your first kit, I guess. So yeah, we have some kits to give away. I'm not really sure how we're going to do that, but please come up, look at our robots, talk to us. We don't bite unless you ask. But yeah, so glad y'all came today. Yeah, I don't know how we're gonna do the drawing exactly, but
You've got written down.
oh, okay.
Pull them out of a
Draw
hat.
names.
Oh, okay.
Some people probably not here if they're not here.
So let's get the actual kits. So we're giving away. How many do we have?
What is it?
Are you saving yours for your panel?
Whenever you guys want me to mix them up.
Bring one of them up, and we'll do the other one at the building panel because we are giving away more kits. I'm having a Gunpla building thing where I'm just going to be hanging out and building. So if you guys want to come say hi, there will be more things to give away. If you want to pretend to be my friend just for a free kit, that's fine. Just come and enjoy Gunpla. So okay, so here we have the 4 that we're giving out today. We've got an SD Unicorn and a Age grade kit, which are the little ones. I'll get them out of the way first. We have a high grade RX78-2. Which is the new one, the Revive version. And then I bought the Grimgird because I just built a Grimgird, and this is an awesome kit, awesome series. So I figured I'd give this one away. So we'll go smallest to largest. So I'll let you do the first one. Just grab a name.
All right. That's so like each individual person gets a kit?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay. Does it go first? Going?
No, I think it died.
Jared Crone.
All right, so we'll just go down the stack, I guess. So.
If you guys don't mind, we'll take a picture with you guys with your kids. So
yeah, that's fine. Yeah. All the winners like stay up here, and we'll give out some of these. Aaron Millen. Aaron? Is there an Aaron here? I guess not.
Oh well.
Can. You won this. There you go, buddy. Enjoy. Okay, you want to do the RX?
All right. Connor Hughes.
There you go.
There we go.
Thanks.
We will autograph them if you'd like. All right, last one here. Mike. I swear to God, I did not see it. So, Mike, you win the Grimgird, my friend. Take it. So, yes. All right. So that concludes our Gunpla panel. If you guys, again, want to come to the Gunpla build, please do. I'll be hanging out, and hopefully I can get my hands on some tools and build them. If you guys have any questions, again, I'll be around. Talk to me. I love robots. So let's get some photos, I guess.
All right. Shut down live stream.
Yeah, we'll shut down live stream. Thanks, everybody
Bye.
that tuned in. Bye. I'll read all the comments later. Maybe.